Well, I hope that we're recording. I thought I'd done this one and then got ready to read it. Nothing there. So evidently I didn't push the right buttons on the camera. Something certainly didn't go well. I took time to get my newspaper clippings out from the Sheridan years and looking at them and seeing, refresh your memory a bit there, old boy. You might see some things that you might not think of otherwise. The first thing I noticed was a May 27th, 67 article in a print that was lifted announcing that the Sheridan Board of Education had employed a Dean Riggs as superintendent. One of the interesting things was the salary was $15,000 a year. I've got a granddaughter or two that, particularly one of them, once said to me, "You mean you've made all that money and you don't have a big amount saved, invested?" Well, I'll tell you what, honey. No, Grandpa maybe didn't do as well as you think he ought to, but we never lived high on the hog, didn't do anything fancy, and never bought a lot of expensive this, that's, or the others. Did buy a couple of toys. Like while we were at Sheridan, we bought 2 small trail bikes. Had them for years and enjoyed them a lot. But that's about as high on the hog as we got. That article also said that at Evergreen Junior High School, and I'm quoting now, the program is one which attempts to individualize instruction through the use of team teaching, individualized study time, individualized grading, resource centers, and other aids. In addition, Dr. Riggs and his staff at Evergreen have worked at developing student leadership through a strong program of student councils. Evergreen Junior High School has a parent advisory board in addition to PTA activity. End of quote. Nothing there that's not appropriate. Undoubtedly lifted either from application materials I sent in or maybe from some sort of an inquiry they made down to the Evergreen community. Couldn't tell you. But it's a little unfortunate because all that stress on a program which attempts to individualize instruction in all those fancy ways, so on. Personally, I never was convinced that you can individualize instruction. I was never any big fan of it. Yeah, great words, great concept, but darn near impossible. I think in an earlier video I said that, Woody, who had no wife, no children at the time, and put in like 80, 90-hour weeks, he did a pretty darn good job, but that's not the typical workload that a teacher can carry and survive. But I think all that kind of spooked some of the staff in Sheridan. One teacher one time finally said to me, "I suppose you've got my replacement already lined up from down there in Jefferson County." The pride in being in Sheridan was such, and Sheridan was such a lovely place, that I think they really felt that, that their jobs were in jeopardy because there'd be a bunch of people where I used to work that would like to come up there and have their jobs. Nothing could be further from the truth, but those little fears can creep in. On the 13th of June, the article that I picked up was, other news was that President Johnson was nominating the first Negro ever to the Supreme Court. And that gentleman was Thurgood Marshall, a man who had earned a great reputation prior to being considered for appointment to the Supreme Court. And I think history graded him as being a great Supreme Court justice. But I'd be the first to admit that there are some people that would never feel he was great because he's the wrong color. And I'd always thought that Lou Finch was my assistant superintendent, but in reading the newspaper on the 22nd of June and the 27th of June, I find out that, hey, actually, his original title was to be an administrative assistant. And then on the 27th, the article says that Millard Meredith, curriculum director for the Sheridan schools, had resigned to accept the position of heading the demonstration school down at the University of Wyoming. And in the shift then that caused, E.R. Shovlin moved up from junior high to the position of administrative assistant that originally Lou had been tabbed for, and then Lou was put into the position of curriculum director. Both gentlemen did a good job in those areas. The 24th of July, the headline read, 22 Indian girls enter Miss Indian America pageant. Sheridan had a beautiful thing going there. Had this beauty contest, this Miss Indian America contest, and said that there were 22 coming in, and I read through that list, was very impressed. People from the Northwest, people from the East, people from the Northeast, Central, Oklahoma, all over. Those 22 people represented America. Had a big parade. Not just those girls coming, their families came, and there was a lot of Indian influence. Probably all the time, but certainly during this pageant time. On the August the 28th, 67 headline said, Wyoming Education Association calls for special session of the legislature. And reading the article, I noticed right away that you've already been warned that we're going to have adversary negotiations. And here's the quote. I won't say it as quote, but here is the article that the Wyoming Education Association wanted a special session of the state legislature to see about designating more funds for education. And all of that prompted the editor, Dick Redburn, I'm sure, to editorialize, and he said, quote, it's more than mathematics. The quote from that article, the Wyoming Education Association is going to keep an eye on the foundation program and is going to want to see that all funds possible are distributed to the schools. End of quote. Little pressure being put on the state legislature to ante up. And then that either then or a little later sunk in on me that, wait a minute, you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. This isn't like Elkhart and Hartner, where almost 100% of what was to fund the program came from local mill levy. In the intervening years, the feds had got into it a whole lot more, states were into it a whole lot more. There were a lot of things involved in what could be negotiated between the local school board and the local teachers association. Didn't affect the first year much, but it'll enter in a great deal year two.